I understood it, and by applying these techniques to my own life, I was able to reverse those chronic diseases in myself and get off all medications, basically.
Today's guest, we're so excited. We hear it all the time. Eating a balanced diet and making healthy lifestyle changes, to live a longer, more fulfilling life sounds great in theory, but how many of us actually go ahead and make the sacrifices in order for this to happen? And breaking your habits is easier said than done. After being diagnosed with 4 chronic diseases, our guest today has remarkably reversed each of these chronic diseases solely by making lifestyle changes. I want to really emphasize that right there. And to do so, he didn't rely on any medications. He made the difficult change we have all wanted to make. He's not only transformed his own life, but is dedicated to helping others transform theirs. And as a physician and a medical school professor at UCLA and USC, not taking medication to fix some of these issues seems to be completely unheard of. But he quickly learned to challenge his own previous understanding of health and longevity, making his ideas unique and revolutionary. His journey inspired his latest book, Lies I Taught in Medical School, which is a phenomenal book urging readers to rethink traditional healthcare approaches. With 14 influential books and over 200 peer-reviewed articles to his name, please welcome Dr. Robert Lufkin.
Hey, John. Hey, Payman. I'm a big fan of your program, so it's a real honor and pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you for joining us. We're honored to have you.
Definitely. This is, as the first thing I thought of when I saw this book was amen. Lies we were taught in medical school, because, we looked at from metabolism, from exercise, from weight loss, all of these different things, and we have been lied to. We've been, and it's currently still in our medical school curriculum. Kind of bring us back a little bit. You previously described yourself as a product of mainstream medicine, which I think a lot of us doctors do as well, but that's a perfect way to put it. Share with us your background, your journey. How did you get interested in medicine? And we'll kind of delve into where we made the flip.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. Well, I started off, I was fortunate to, my mom was a registered dietitian growing up. So I was immersed in the idea that nutrition mattered and that food mattered. So unfortunately, though, we followed the government recommendations at the time, which was a low-fat diet. We substituted margarine full of seed oils and trans fats for butter. We avoided saturated fats. We avoided eggs. But the idea of having her in my life, I think, kindled my interest in medicine. And I went to medical school. And then I basically stayed on as a professor at a couple medical schools here in Southern California and spent my entire career doing that. So it really places me as, I'm really not a conspiracy theorist. I'm really a mainstream medical insider. And I was kind of forced into this, kicking and screaming myself when I came down with these 4 diseases that you mentioned, because I would like to say that I did this for the betterment of mankind, but it was more out of self-preservation.
And most of the time, things are like that,
yes.
Right? You really go into it because you want to fix yourself, and then you realize, oh my God, I've been teaching the wrong things to so many people.
I want to go on record too, and you guys probably feel the same way, that I still am a fan of Western medicine. 100%. At least, in the 20th century, Western medicine has transformed our lives with public health, infectious disease, and the surgeries and medicines that were developed revolutionized humanity. The problem, I think, and what the book addresses is in the 21st century, there's a group of chronic diseases which were present in the 20th century, but nowhere near like they are now. They're now in epidemic proportions. And these chronic diseases, which are exploding, when Western medicine applies the same pills and medicines to these chronic diseases, it doesn't really work. In some cases, they may mask the symptoms and slow them down, but in most cases, they don't prevent the underlying progression of the disease. And that's what this book is about. The way that I understood it, and by applying these techniques to my own life, I was able to reverse those chronic diseases in myself and get off all medications, basically.
That part is truly amazing. I mean, for the listeners out there, can you tell us what were the 4 chronic diseases and what was the initial treatment that was recommended?
Yeah, the 4 diseases were, first of all, a type of arthritis called gout. Secondly, hypertension or high blood pressure.
I have gout. We can talk about that.
Yeah.
These are all in the 21st century common diseases. Hypertension, almost half of people have high blood pressure and under treatment for it. The third was dyslipidemia or abnormal blood lipids, for which I was prescribed a medication. And then finally was glucose abnormalities, which is pre-diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And like any good patient, when I was diagnosed with those, I went to the doctors and I was prescribed a prescription medicine for each one of those 4. And I asked about lifestyle, but they said, it really doesn't work. You need to resign yourself to a lifetime of these medications. And at that point, that's when I began to, go back to the research and re-educate myself and realize that there's a revolution in knowledge that's been happening that I wasn't aware of, and many of my colleagues are still not aware of.
And how long ago was this?
This is about 7 years ago.
The interesting part is, we kind of glanced over the fact that you decided, I'm going to go back and check these things. What was the impetus that made you say, you looked at your doc and you said, it's not that I don't trust you. I know in my mind, the first thing that I would say is, I cannot take pills for the rest of my life. There has to be something else. Whereas millions of Americans, simply the doc says, take this pill, and that's what they do. And then you develop a complication from that one or a side effect or something, and then they say, well, just switch you over to another one. What was that point where you said, you know what, it's not for me?
Well, for me, I guess it was my medical background. I knew enough about those diseases that I knew it wasn't going to end well. The natural progression of those are very serious and life-threatening diseases in many cases. And at the time, I still had young girls who weren't even in elementary school. And I realized, I wanted to be around to see their kids and grandkids. And it wasn't necessarily going to be possible if I just palliated them with these drugs that didn't necessarily control the progression of the diseases. So I was looking for something else.
I can think back of all the times that we've discussed it too, is that, we were, the good part about being an osteopathic physician, and we talk about it all the time because he's allopathic, as are you. And the idea is that we were kind of taught that even though we did have Western medicine, there were other things that we needed to do. And so I do realize the fact that a pill isn't necessarily the answer. It was just treating the symptom, not the progression of the disease, as you had said. So I think that's an important point to make for all the viewers and listeners. And for some of you who have these chronic diseases, I mean, look, we're looking at an obesity epidemic. We're looking, which we've had for decades now. But when we look at glucose control and all the different, we run towards a particular medicine we're waiting for the one pill that will kind of fix all. And I think we're going to kind of touch on some things here.
And unfortunately, it's like you said, it's what we've been taught, right? So we were taught in medical school to learn about a pathology or a disease, learn about its physiology, learn about how the body works, and then you become a detective. You find out, you put together all the signs and symptoms, and then you treat it with a medication, or if you're a surgeon, you would do surgery for something that's needed, right? That's really kind of how it was. There's never, let's talk about diet. Let's talk about exercise. Let's change diet. Let's try supplements. Let's try, how about we do something with natural herbs and remedies? Never, whether it's your medical school, my medical school, yours, or anyone else's. Now, things could be changing a little bit, but that we should bring some people in that do treat people. We were just talking about the Mark Hymans of the world, or that don't just think, and he's a doctor as well, and he doesn't think that you should treat everything with medication. He thinks about, hey, why don't we cut a few things out and add a few other things? Maybe that'll help your hypertension or your glucose intolerance or things like that. And perhaps that's what should be happening in all the medical schools, and it can change everything. The problem is you've got a lot of drug companies that are going to be very upset with that. And it's hard to combat that.
I don't want to say that Western medicine doesn't work, because if I, walking out to my car, I get hit by a bus, I need a blood transfusion.
That'll have Pfizer on it.
Sure, though, you're right.
I'll need life-saving things that Western medicine can provide. And while lifestyle may make me heal better, it won't save my life in the moment. And so we don't want to throw those out. But when we apply those same pills and surgery to these chronic diseases, it doesn't really work. And I think that's the wake-up call for me, and hopefully that what this book is about, that more people will get the message.
If you looked at the current curriculum, what would be the ideal curriculum to teach medical students? And how hard was it for you to separate yourself from the way we were taught to the way you should be taught?
That's a great question. I mean, the usual answer is nutrition, more on nutrition. The problem is the nutritional advice is sponsored by the American Dietetic Association, which is what dietitians do and what my mom did. And that's, if you go to their meetings, they're sponsored by junk food companies. They have the lunch from Coca-Cola. And so that information is skewed. And even, the American Heart Association, American Diabetes Association, you can go down the list. They all have pernicious financial influences that skew the education that people are getting. But back to your question, I think nutrition is key, and then metabolism, and underscoring the importance of metabolism as a fundamental driver for these chronic diseases that represent 80% of our expenditures now in healthcare, that how metabolism plays a role, mitochondrial health, and it's complicated. It's one pill necessarily doesn't do it. There are many, many different factors, but I think that's the solution.
I recently read a book by, I can't remember his first name, Ponser. It's called Burn. And all it does is talk about metabolism. And he went out to the Hadza tribes in Africa and they measured metabolism. The results of this were completely the opposite of everything that I've been taught. And so I'm curious to see, again, with some of the things that you talk about in the book, particularly about cortisol and its essential role in many parts of our metabolism and how we live and things like that. But it was interesting to me because when we talked about weight loss, it was always the more you exercise, the more weight you could lose. And it wasn't necessarily the case in this book. It was that, it really goes back to calories in, calories out, but it's the type of calories and, things like that. So what were your eating habits before your diagnosis of these 4 chronic diseases?
Well, I always paid attention to my diet, and I ate a low-fat diet, what my mom recommended. She recommended I eat, many meals throughout the day to spread the food out. And I didn't pay attention to seed oils at all or grains. I thought they were healthy. Whole grains, was healthy.
They made it sound
That's
healthy.
what it was,
Yeah, and it wasn't just nutrition. It was my whole lifestyle. I was, I had a pager, a beeper. I was on call 24 hours a day. I thought that made me tough. I thought I was helping patients when I realized, in a lot of cases I was hurting patients because of what it was doing to me and impairing my ability to respond. But it went all the way along the lifestyle. I tried to pay attention to my lifestyle, but I was doing the wrong things that wouldn't affect these metabolic diseases that the book is about. And that's the challenge. I mean, I don't think anyone will disagree that it's important to have a healthy lifestyle or to eat healthy food. The problem is all the different messages people are being given by what is healthy food, what is healthy lifestyle. And it's very, very confusing.
It's a great point because especially nowadays, you have so many different types of messages from different information platforms, right? And you really don't know who to listen to, from the younger kids looking at TikTok, the older people on Instagram and Facebook and even YouTube, and now books. And, like we talked about earlier, you can publish your own book on Amazon, and it's really hard to know who are the good authorities. Like, who do you really listen to? Who has really affected your life? other than yourself and your own research that have helped you with nutrition and diet and everything else?
Yeah, the amount of information is exploding, through podcasts, and there's so many great ones out there like you guys are doing here, and video programs also on YouTube. There's a lot of information. What I try and do in the book, and what my personal approach is to look at the primary articles. And although the book is aimed at a general audience, it's profusely illustrated. There's all kinds of diagrams and pictures, so it's easy to read with concepts. But also, I make a point of referencing the basic original peer-reviewed research. So, and that, that's at the end of the book. There are all those references there. So if someone wants to hand that book to their physician, or if they choose themselves to actually go to those articles and look at them and, ask, is it a controlled study that can answer questions about causality, or is it just a epidemiological study that can only answer questions about correlation? Those are important things to do. So, and I think we're entering obviously a new era with the internet and everything else, that this information is available to all of us if we're interested. But to your question, that start out with podcasts and YouTube, but then to go deeper, and I urge everyone to do that, is look at the original articles, and it's easy to get educated more and more as you read those articles.
I did want to glance over this as well. You were talking about the difference between causal studies and epidemiologic studies, and so much of what we were taught is based off of epidemiologic studies. I mean, Framingham was a very large study, but there are plenty of these types of studies where we look at relationships and then we come to conclusions based off of what we think, right? And I remember listening to Peter Attia, and he had said that there was one study that showed that something about, in this same study, the husband and wife, someone was eating a handful of berries a day or something like that, and they showed a reduction in their cholesterol and all this. But in the same study, they could take from there that the males that were eating, or the couple that ate the most margarine, also had the highest level of divorces. It was, it was something ridiculous, right? It was kind of like you could take these causal links, or I should say associated links, but they weren't causal studies where you'd say, I'm going to give you A and we see if B or C develop. And that is such a powerful study compared to these epidemiologic studies. And so it's great that you have those in your book.
Yeah, and we all fall into that trap, even reading the studies, and certainly media does. We've all seen the headline, that eating red meat is associated with cancer. People who eat red meat get a lot more cancer than people who don't. And they do, but it's also people who drive pickup trucks get a lot more cancer than people who drive Priuses. And it's not the Prius or the pickup truck, and arguably it may not be the red meat. It may be other aspects of their lifestyle that goes along with that. Perhaps smoking or other things that do that. But it's a slippery slope, and I continually catching myself too. These association studies.
It's hard not to, because sometimes you look at it and you're like, wow, that's so interesting. Look at that. Or we'll even look at each other but you can't go down that rabbit hole in a sense.
Well, we had the carnivore MD, Paul Saladino, on here. And then we also had the opposite. We had Dr. Stephen Gundry. And, we talked about plant paradox and things like that. The interesting part is originally when we discovered the blue zones, those were the, 6 areas of the country, 7 areas of the country, or of the world that have the most centenarians, people over 100 years old. And then originally everybody said it's because they're all plant-based. It was not true.
No.
It was not true.
It was their activity.
In fact, it was more community-based. There were so many other aspects to it, but that was what the headline said. And so everybody switched over to being vegan, for sure vegetarian, and then we realized, okay, well, that's not true. They were eating some beef, some lamb, some fish, but it was portion control. And a lot of what they said was that it probably came down to the level of community,
purpose in life.
That because again, obviously we're not saying that if you live in a community and you all smoke, you're going to do great, but the idea was there were other factors in there. So this is where you say, take that deep dive, look for yourself, because a lot of what we have been taught, you talk to someone and they say, oh, I don't eat red meat because I want to be healthy. Well, that's not the case anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I love the Blue Zones, Dan Buettner's work. Some of the ideas about community and exercise and wellness, being alert, and that nutrition matters is really important. Even though that study has come under a lot of scientific scrutiny, they were typically the Blue Zones, other than Loma Linda, are socioeconomically poor. They keep poor health records, and somebody did a study of the centenarians, their birth dates, and most people's birth dates are random. Makes sense. They occur randomly, but the centenarians in these studies, the birth dates were non-random. In other words, they were more likely to occur on the first of the month, or certain times that implies they were not actual birth dates. But it's a great message of community and everything. I'm disturbed that the Blue Zone brand recently has been purchased by a religious organization, and I have nothing against religious organizations, no judgment, no shade. But anytime an organization with a particular agenda, and this group actually has a nutritional agenda, and when you can't help but think that the message may be influenced by that, and that's that's disappointing.
Do you still practice medicine?
I do. Although I'm devoting most of my time to this project, the books, and getting the message out.
And are you still teaching?
Yes, I am.
At UCLA and SC?
Now at USC.
Okay.
I was at UCLA for many decades before then, but I still have close ties to both of them. They're both in this area in LA.
Amazing. In the medical community, you've been involved with UCLA, SC, you've been around in this town for a while. How was this book received? Did people look at it as a slap in the face? Because again, lies I taught in medical school, some people that are, obviously stuck in their ways are like, what are you doing? You're kind of spitting on your own background. It's I think it's wonderful because I agree with everything you're saying. How do the rest of the people kind of receive that?
Yeah, that's a great question. People ask me, can you how do your colleagues, are they attacking you now? And I think the title I have to admit is a little clickbait. It's designed to get people's attention,
Sure.
But if to get the message out, you need to get people's attention.
Definitely.
But I think anyone who knows about science or medicine will agree with one of the greatest physicians who ever lived, Sir William Osler, has a famous quote about one of the best quotes about medical education, and he gave this speech to graduating medical students on the day they became doctors, the first day of their life as physicians when they ended medical school. And he said, this was over 100 years ago, he said, "Gentlemen," and unfortunately at the time most were gentlemen, he said, "Gentlemen, we have a confession to make. 50% of what we've just taught you in medical school is incorrect. Because unfortunately, we don't know which half it is." And that speaks to the nature of medical education. Anyone who's honest with themselves and knows about it knows that it's constantly evolving. And what we learned to be true 5 years ago, as our models of reality change, we're constantly evolving that. And that's what this book speaks to, is that education and our knowledge is moving on and on and on. And it's a challenge to keep up with it. And when people don't, in the healthcare space, and don't educate on the latest knowledge, actual harm can be done.
The problem is it's also controlled. Sorry to interrupt you. Like you talked about earlier, we have we're a little handcuffed because the funding that we receive, whether it's a hospital or a medical school, you have to be cognizant of that. You don't want to kind of bite the hand that feeds you. And at the same time, you want to give the proper information. We worked on something for a couple of years trying to take healthcare prevention to hospitals, right? And really kind of eliminate the cost of treatment, instead kind of diagnose early. So everything's based on diagnosis. So bring everyone in and do head to toe, scanning and see if you can prevent the disease before it happens. We took it so far where it almost got approved, and the board of directors said absolutely not. And the real reason is because you're going to take all the treatment away. What are all the doctors going to do? What about all the medications you're going to write? What about everything else? What about all the treatments? If you prevent colon cancer, well, who's going to take the colon out? It's a horrible double-edged sword in a lot of ways, but we did this and we thought it was a great idea. And this big monster healthcare company turned around and said, "Sorry, we can't help you."
Yeah, I totally understand that. And I believe fundamentally that human beings nobody in healthcare or most people don't get up wanting to hurt another human being. We're basically good, but there are pernicious influences, financial, conscious and unconscious, otherwise, that drive this. And to your point, type 2 diabetes is a chronic progressive disease. So we're told it's the number one cause of surgical amputations, number one cause of dialysis and renal transplants, blindness, on and on and on. So if you go to a hospital and type 2 diabetes, you can either treat it with drugs where you'll decrease some of the symptoms, but you won't stop the chronic progressive nature of it. Most of those complications still occur. Or you can treat it with diet where you essentially reverse the disease and there is no progression and you go off medicines. And when you go to a hospital and confront them with, hey, we have a program that will get rid of all these things. At some point, somebody's thinking about
the business aspect,
the downstream
line,
effects.
Right?
Yeah,
it's challenging. Yeah,
I do want to comment on the fact that our forefathers before us, who taught us, some of the tenets of medicine and things like that, they didn't have access to a lot of the data that we do now. And so, again, I think in medicine, most start off, again, first do no harm, try to really help. But at some point, I think we're blinded by the fact that we're moving, the wheel has turned and now it's hard to stop the wheel and reverse it and go in the opposite direction. So everybody goes with it. Let's talk about that with your book, how conventional medicine is making you sicker. And you had kind of talked about it, the fact that it's not stopping the progression of the disease. We're just kind of treating the symptoms. So when we draw blood, it looks better on paper, but ultimately it's not doing anything for you. What are some of the key tenets in this book, some takeaways that you would say? Obviously, I want people to read this book because it does open your eyes a little bit. But what are some key tenets and takeaways that you would give someone?
Just the point you made, John, I want to underscore that the medicines and the surgeries can treat the symptoms and in many cases be life-saving. And I want to say I'm not recommending anyone stop their medications without involving their healthcare provider, their physician with them. And I certainly did that. I involved them when I went off my medications. But the point is that for these chronic diseases, the medicines like the insulin or metformin for type 2 diabetes can reduce the symptoms and even save your life from hyperglycemia, but they don't control the chronic progressive nature of it. As another example, for the number one killer that I'm likely to die of, and each of you and most of our audience, of course, is a heart attack, cardiovascular disease, statistically. When people get a heart attack today, the treatment is to put a stent or a little a mechanical device that opens up the blood vessel to the heart. And many people, when they get the stent, they go, wow, I'm alive, I dodged that bullet, my heart disease is taken care of, I don't have to worry about that anymore. What they don't realize is that the stent, it may save their life acutely, and there's some argument about that even, but it doesn't necessarily affect their long-term consequences of getting a heart attack. And all the underlying atherosclerosis, as it's called, the narrowing of the blood vessels, continues in the rest of the blood vessels and even in the stent itself. So putting the stent in is symptomatic and may save their life, but unless they change their lifestyle, the underlying disease will continue to progress. And that happens with obesity, diabetes, cancer, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's disease, and mental illness, to name a few that I cover in the book.
That's across the entire...
And you bring up obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and I want to ask you a question. What do you think about the GLT agonists? What do you think about Ozempic? What do you think about the quick kind of easy fix now that has been the craze in this country, that is bringing down A1C levels to being normal, that people are losing 40, 50 pounds, changing their lifestyle, they're not eating as much? What are your thoughts on that? Because out of all the medications that we talk about these days, I find this to be something that's super beneficial. Now, who knows what kind of long-term side effects it has or what, but at least in the last 10 years since it's been around, and really heavy duty for the past couple of years, it's incredible. I mean, it can change people's lives and probably also help the progression long-term. But I'm just wondering what you think, because it's very conventional.
Yeah, I have to admit, like most people, I would rather take a pill than change the way I live my life, whether it's my diet or my exercise or sleep or anything like that. So the idea of a pill is very appealing. I wish it were as easy for people just to, lose weight just by, changing what they eat, changing the types of macronutrients, and they will lose weight. But it's not that easy. And some people undergo surgery for obesity now. So
absolutely.
In the spectrum of things, I think the pills, like you mentioned, are better than a surgical, which is really...
It's a morbid procedure.
It's a morbid procedure.
That shouldn't be
and permanent.
Yeah, not really reversible, to a full extent necessarily. So it's better than that. But as you say, there are problems with these pills that long-term use, you have to be on it for the lifetime.
Right.
What happens when you stop? We know what happens when you stop. And then the side effects that we're just beginning to appreciate. So pills can be helpful, but I think, and that's the theme of the whole book. We talk about rapamycin, which is a longevity drug. And everyone says, well, I'll just take rapamycin and then I don't have to worry about my lifestyle. But even the point in the book is that even these amazing longevity drugs that lengthen life in animal models and probably in humans too, you really shouldn't do it without changing your lifestyle. And if you're not changing your lifestyle, you're not going to get the maximum effects of the rapamycin. And similarly with these obesity drugs, if we change our lifestyle, we won't need those drugs anymore necessarily.
So here's a follow-up question to that. One of the chronic diseases, gout, which I also have, was this something for you that's genetic, or was it really related to, purine metabolism in the sense that you were eating either meats or drinking alcohol that caused it? What was your trigger? And here's the second part of it. Do you not take those triggers at all anymore?
The question about genetics, is it hereditary? That always comes up with, Alzheimer's or any of these things. It's like, and what we're finding out is because the incidence of these diseases are going through the roof, our genetics isn't changing, so something else is changing in the environment. And that's even true for longevity. You say, how do you live a long time? Pick your grandparents. Well, it's really not that way. Longevity genes are less than 10%. It's really about lifestyle. So, our ability to affect these. And when I developed gout, I went to my doctor. I was told, it's purine metabolism. Don't drink alcohol. Don't drink meats, and all these high purine foods. And what I realized was, and I tried that. It didn't really help necessarily.
And you still got flare-ups.
Yeah. And in the book, what I began to realize that there are basic metabolic abnormalities that we talk about in the book, like fructose metabolism in the liver that degrades to urate, which uric acid crystals in gout, and are one of the drivers for gout. So for me, it was sugar and this kind of thing, and going on this metabolically healthy diet and lifestyle that I did, it reversed the gout, the hypertension, everything across the board. And that was the amazing thing about it, that this metabolically healthy state it affects all those diseases and our risk of the diseases downstream. I don't have Alzheimer's yet, but my mom died of it in her 90s, and
you're going to do everything in your power to prevent that happening with lifestyle and diet and modifications.
And as you guys I'm sure appreciate, the challenge of modern healthcare is to, if I wait until the doctor tells me I have type 2 diabetes or that I have memory loss or something, these diseases, even cancer, goes on. They can go on months to years to even decades before they present. So the best way to get in front of these is to change your lifestyle now, and you'll move these later on in life and decrease your risk of getting them.
And how difficult was it for you to change your lifestyle? And for listeners, we talk about this all the time. We always talk about it takes about 21 days to create a habit or to stop a habit. Like if you're a smoker, we always tell our patients, hey, just stop for 3 weeks, you're going to stop forever. How difficult was it to change your life? And also, when did you actually feel, okay, I'm on cruise control?
Great question. Full confession, I'm a recovering junk food addict. I love junk food.
Everybody does.
I love I love donuts, I love bagels, all these things, but there's one thing I love more, and that's my children. And that was the touch point for me in making these dietary changes. The junk food, I don't keep it in the house. It's like an alcoholic. I don't have liquor at my desk every day, and same thing with junk food. So it's a challenge, and it's an addiction. It's not just about willpower. It's about, childhood trauma that we all have in various forms. And, it's a complicated thing. But for me, the three things I avoid in my diet basically are the carbohydrates, the sugars, and then secondly, the seed oils, which are the vegetable oils, and then thirdly, the grains. And I eliminated all three of those in my diet, but the time span and the effects are very different. The stopping sugar in my diet, carbohydrates, starches, rice, flour, grains, flour rather, that the effects I saw almost immediately, typically in 24 hours, 48 hours. Your glucose goes down, you go into ketosis because I began fasting. I cut out the between meal snacks, and I went from, I dropped breakfast and I eventually dropped lunch too, and now I just have one meal a day when my kids come home from school. And
just like Gundry.
For me, I feel great. Everybody's different, but my brain is clearer and everything, and it's a great thing. Right. So dropping carbs and sugars, the effect I think is within a few days. Most people, even the blood pressure dropping, it was amazing. That's awesome. The grains, the effects of the grains are a little bit longer because it's an immunological effect. I don't have celiac disease. I'm not allergic to gluten, but many people believe that the proteins in grains drive a sort of a subclinical inflammatory reaction that many people get that drive inflammation, and this can take up to 90 days to reverse just because of the way the immune system works. Obviously, the glyphosate, the weed killer, that things our grains are bathed in, reversing that will also have effects. Then the last one is the seed oils. These are vegetable oils that to this day, the American Heart Association still recommends on their website as being heart healthy because they do lower LDL, but they also drive inflammation, oxidation, and historically, the American Heart Association was funded by a multi-million-dollar grant, essentially, that enabled them to grow. That was all from Procter & Gamble, who is the maker of Crisco and the seed oils.
Interesting to me, because you have heard this more and more in the news, and Paul Saladino talks about it as well, about seed oils and, these synthetically derived things that we wouldn't normally have. For our listeners and viewers, what are some dietary changes? You mentioned the changes. What could we supplant those things with? So instead of the grains and the rices, what would you say? Because I feel like, again, you were talking about going to ketosis, and not everybody is ready for a ketogenic diet. What would you recommend to replace some of these things with?
First of all, I don't look at it as a diet. It's the way I'm going to live to see my grandkids and just be healthier and have a clearer mind, a clearer brain. So I look at the plus things, what I can substitute. I mean, with my mom, the dietitian, we never ate butter. We ate margarine because we were afraid of saturated fats. We carved the fat off the meat. We didn't eat egg yolks. The whole
funny
thing.
How things have changed. Wow.
Yes.
So now I'll sit down and eat a whole bowl of guacamole, I'll eat sour cream, I'll eat a stick of butter, and I'll embrace the high fat foods that I never could eat before that I eat now. So rather than feeling sorry for myself because I don't eat cotton candy anymore, it's rejoicing that I can eat a steak or avocado and not worry about the things that I used to worry about. So it's a matter of substituting things and feel like I'm living a healthier lifestyle.
And I've heard this kind of like 80-20 principle for a lot of people. Do you live by that in the sense that, hey, 80% of the time I'm going to really stick to my diet and then I'm going to cheat? Or is this your lifestyle? I don't cheat at all. I'm not going to get a burger. I'm not having carb. I'm not getting a bowl of pasta. I asked Dr. Gundry this and he had an interesting answer. Just wondering how you do that with because it is tough. Sometimes you want to sit with your girls and have, dinner out, but at the same time you could just have a steak and some vegetables.
Yeah, that's a great question, and different people approach it from different philosophies. My friend Tim Ferriss has famously talks about cheat days, and where he'll stay on his thing and then he'll have a cheat day or something like that. For me, I don't do that. I have to admit, I have, 2 teenagers at home. So, there is junk food in our house and we go out and, once in a while I'll have something with them, but it's not a scheduled cheat day. And it's usually in small amounts. Like I'll taste their ice cream or something like that rather than, going all into it, because I feel differently. I can feel it when I eat a lot of carbs. The seed oils, I'm starting to feel it also. It may be in my head, but I feel differently when I do those things.
It's interesting to me too, because I think that once you're in a regimen, even if you stray off that path for a little bit, it may make you just fall off of it. So I think that when you stick to what your regimen is, I personally think it's better. So I just wanted to see what you said. And it's funny because Dr. Gundry said, well, when I'm in Italy, I cheat. And I'm like, well, let's not talk about it.
Yeah. Different requirements on food there. You had mentioned earlier that changing lifestyle is more powerful than a pill. And what else about your lifestyle did you change? Obviously, diet was paramount, but was there anything else that you threw in that you thought was going to be important and you still stick to today?
Yeah, and that's a key point. Some people will go, okay, I switched my diet. I'm eating a metabolically healthy diet, but things haven't changed. These things, and you can't leave sleep out, you can't leave exercise out, and you can't leave stress out. So for me, it was sleep, not only quantity but also quality. And used to think, Elon Musk bragged about sleeping 4 hours a day on the floor of the Tesla factory, But the evidence now, it seems to me, and then when we talk about it in the book, is that most people are around 8 hours, and it's a U-shaped curve. And if you get much less than that or much more than that, your risk for like cardiovascular disease goes up and these other things. So
yeah, I thought it was interesting that even you get more than 8 hours of sleep, that it went up. You would think less because you're under a lot of stress, your body's breaking down, you can't. But I thought it was interesting that beyond that, it was that.
And even exercise, the studies on exercise now that, too little exercise, everybody knows it's not good. But now the studies coming out with too much exercise. First it was calcium, coronary calcium scores were going up in these ultra marathoners, and they said, well, it's just a flow phenomenon. It's not really affecting their heart. But then, of course, the studies have come out showing myocardial fibrosis in these ultra endurance athletes. So it appears to be a U-shaped curve with exercise as well, and there's a sweet spot for most of us there as well. And mental exercise is really important, and then stress, perhaps most of all, mindset. A sense of purpose in life. The great thing about stress is, stress is not what happens in my life to me. My stress is how I respond to what happens in my life. Now, I can't always control how I respond, but at least it's within my own, my own psyche. It may not be under conscious control, but that mindset, is so powerful that all those things need to be taken care of. So those lifestyle things have to be addressed, not just nutrition. And then we want to make sure we don't have any toxins in our lives, mold, mercury, Lyme disease, lead. There are a number of things you should just exclude as being causative, and then you're home free.
I want to congratulate you on having a New York Times bestseller. It's a big deal. It really is. And congratulations, because, I know you've published a lot of other books as well, but I know that there is a chapter that you're actually offering to our listeners free of charge. And I just wanted to have you talk about that for a second, and where they can find it and access that, because I think that if they look into this book, I recommend it because I think it's brilliant, because you're getting a medical doctor who's also a professor at multiple medical schools that's giving an insight on your own life. And I think that's, to me, more important than anything else. You can treat people, but if you treat yourself and you make it work, I think you can preach it. And that's why I think it's such a great book for people to pick up and read, because instead of saying, oh, this is what bothers me, I have high blood pressure, look, You had the same things, and you could have just said, I'll take the pills and go, but you did a real deep dive into yourself. So what is the chapter that you're kind of offering for everyone?
Well, thanks, first of all, for the kind words, too, if I could.
Of course.
And the 10 other books I wrote were all textbooks. They were like medical textbooks that nobody reads. They're basically like,
we probably read.
So this is my first book that's personal. It's about, like you say, it's about me revealing myself, and it's fun. It's going to a general audience, and the New York Times, as everybody knows, that's a lot of luck, and we got lucky this time, but thank you for that. And they can go to our website, which is robertlufkinmd.com, and if you just look under lies, you can download a free chapter and check it out. Sometimes writing style doesn't agree with everybody. No need to buy it, or even get it from your library if you don't like the writing style, but check it out and see if it agrees with you and see if it resonates with you.
We'll definitely do that.
I just had a follow-up question here. When you did switch over, obviously as physicians we love numbers. When you go to the physician now, your doctor, and you get your labs drawn, do you smile when you walk out of there because you see such a dramatic improvement?
Yeah, it's a good feeling, and I'm constantly diving in with more labs and looking at other things, and everything is a process, and there's more and more fascinating information coming out all the time. But yeah, it does feel good to not take those pills every day, and know that at a fundamental level we're addressing the root cause rather than just the symptoms.
And now in the world of longevity and regenerative medicine, what are your thoughts about? I'm going to start with one thing: supplements. And the second thing is, what is your outlook on where we are right now in regenerative medicine and what the potential is?
Yeah, I think there's a revolution in longevity that's going on in the last 10 years, last 5 years. It's just exploding. There are now, credible means to improve the longevity of animals and likely humans as well that were never available before. And we talk about some of them in the book, and I'm super excited about your place in Mexico down in Cabo. I want to go down and check out that regenerative longevity medicine center. So there are places like this that are coming up all over. But I'm super psyched with regenerative medicine, partial epigenetic reprogramming, things with stem cells. It's evolving so fast that it's just, I get excited every morning when I wake up to see what's going on. But supplements, I think we can, in addition to lifestyle, and I wouldn't recommend doing the supplements without doing the lifestyle, or even doing plasmapheresis or, any of these longevity tools without getting the lifestyle in order, because one can cancel out the other possibly, and why wouldn't you want to do that?
No.
Place your bets on everything, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But supplements, I think, definitely play a role. I mentioned rapamycin, metformin, acarbose. Those are prescription medicines, but they're non-prescription medicines that are very exciting now, that are coming along the path also. So I think things are happening really fast, and we're going to be reaching longevity escape velocity. Just like we are with. I think general AI will be coming also, and things are going to change really fast in a way that we don't expect them.
And it's interesting because your title is great for what you wrote, and I could flip it around for when I was in med school and say things I wasn't taught in medical school. And I think that with John and I, we can actually sit here and with you too, and talk about all the things that nobody taught us. And I think that's what this book kind of brings in. We are taught, I do a lot of body contouring procedures, a lot of mommy makeovers, liposuction, and it's interesting to me because I think it's as important as my job for really creating a beautiful shape. They have to maintain it, right? I don't put someone on a diet and exercise program. I should. No one taught me that in medical school. Nobody taught me half of the stuff in medical school. Nobody taught me about prevention of disease. Really, very little. We talk about colonoscopy and mammograms and things like that, but we don't talk about lifestyle modifications. We write it, lifestyle modification at the end of the note, or a diet and exercise, right? But nobody sat with us in a course where we had pathology, physiology, anatomy, biochemistry. These are all very important, right? We need to know all of the medications, all their side effects, all their mechanism of actions. But the most important thing as you can kind of really delve in and tell us right now, is the stuff that we do on a daily basis that causes all these problems. So I think that hopefully we get these to all the medical schools and have them put, there should be a little bit of a curriculum shift. Keep teaching us what you're teaching us, but also add things that we can actually really help people. Instead of saying, oh, I'm going to refer you to a dietitian, say, here are the things you need to do. And unfortunately, nobody taught us that. And listen, we graduated medical school over 20-something years ago. So maybe things have changed. I haven't been into a medical school, but it seems like not really.
Well, sadly not. I mean, the lies that I talk about in here in the book, sadly, most of them are still being taught by my colleagues. A calorie is just a calorie. And if you want to lose weight, exercise more and eat less. We all know how well that works. It doesn't, Right. But on a brighter note, I mean, I've had a couple medical schools reach out to me and they want to use this book as a textbook for the medical students.
Great. That's perfect.
And we'll see
baby
how that
steps.
goes.
I mean, it's a fantastic thing. I mean, it really is.
Honestly, I think it's a great book for every freshman, first year med student to come in and and take a look at. So they, it would be great to have these guys graduate as all of them as thinkers, as opposed to just the followers. Which many of us are, because that's just how we're taught. So I really applaud you for the book. It's such a pleasure having you here. And I know I learned something. I hope all of our viewers and listeners
Lots
did
of fun.
as well.
Thank you.
One last thing. If someone else wants to find out more information, you had mentioned a website, but is there also, any social media that they should follow or anything like that where you give them tips and tricks and things
Sure.
like that?
Yeah, I'm active on Twitter and LinkedIn and X rather. And
love it.
YouTube,
Love it.
And we just started streaming on Twitch, believe it or not.
Can people come see you as a patient?
Right now, I'm not accepting new patients just because the amount of time it takes, and I want to devote my attention to this work and reach more people, kind of at scale. But people are asking for physicians who are aligned with this way, and we're putting together a list on the website that will be announcing that if they're from Minneapolis and they want a functional integrative physician who is aligned with some of the concepts in this book, then that'll be available to them.
More amazing videos just like this one. Watch.
I only eat one meal a day. So I didn't have any breakfast. I won't have any lunch. I'll eat all my calories between 5 and 7 o'clock tonight. And I've been doing that now for, I think this is my 24th year of doing that.